Here's another example that we can go through regarding approximations with small k values. This time we have a kp value. It is small, 6.8 times 10 to the negative 9. K values are typically considered small when we're looking at 10 to the negative 5, 10 to the negative 6, or smaller. So when we solve for Q, we recognize that this reaction shifts to the right. So we get minus X for COCl and COCl2, and then plus X on the right-hand side. Now it turns out that we could solve this expression directly just using the quadratic formula. And you could do that. That's not too difficult, and this would be a problem that I would expect you to be able to calculate using the quadratic formula. However, we see that we have 1 minus x, and x is the change that occurs when this reaction shifts to the right, and we have a very small kp value, so it's not going to shift to the right very much. You will notice in this problem that we are using pressures here instead of concentrations. Know that you can carry out these ice table calculations using concentrations or pressures. The same rules will apply using Kc values or Kp values, as in this problem. I'm going to simplify the math and suggest that x is less than 5% of 1. If I do that, then the calculation becomes rather simple, and I do not need to use the quadratic formula. And I get an x value of 8.25 times 10 to the negative 5. So, is 8.25 times 10 to the negative 5 less than 5% of 1? Yes, absolutely. 8.25 times 10 to the negative 5 divided by the value to which I assumed it was small with respect to is 8.25 times 10 to the negative 3%. So this is a very valid assumption. If I carried out all this math and then determined that my assumption was not valid, that it was greater than 5%, then no problem. I would just go back, include the x, and carry out the calculation using the quadratic formula. The advantage of making the assumption, doing the math, and then even if you have to go back and redo it, is you already know the approximate x value. So if you were to go back and include the x, and then carry out the calculation using the quadratic formula, you now have a target value to verify that you did your math correctly when you use the quadratic formula. So you're really not at a loss by making an assumption and just seeing if it works. I'll then further verify that I did everything correctly by recalculating Kp.